Leading a team to hunt monsters, the man was betrayed by his own employer, stabbed in the back, and killed on the spot. When he opened his eyes again, he had been reborn as the enemy's own son, born with the ultra-rare Thunder God awakening ability, and a mysterious, overpowered system bound to him. His sworn enemy treated him like a precious heir, sparing no effort to raise him. But in his heart he sneered. He would drink his enemy's milk, grow strong, and then take revenge, slay his enemy, reunite with his 3 lost sisters, and stand at the very top of the world's pyramid. In a luxury VIP maternity ward, the young madam of the Liu family was in labor. A baby's first cry suddenly rang out. "Congratulations, Master Liu. Your family has an heir." Compliments flooded in from all directions, but Master Liu waved them away, his eyes suddenly sharp as he questioned the maid, only to learn that his playboy son had gone to a pleasure house while his wife was giving birth. But before Master Liu could even get angry, a terrified scream erupted from inside the delivery room. Everyone rushed to the door, and the moment they stepped in, they froze. The newborn's tiny body crackled with lightning, arcs of electricity dancing across his skin. Those with sharp eyes gasped on the spot. Innate God awakening, and it's one of a kind. Yet the entire Liu family could never have imagined. Their firstborn grandson was actually Yi Chun, the commoner they had once crushed to death without a thought. And even more shocking, at the very moment of birth, he awakened the Thunder God ability, instantly surpassing the D rank limit straight into C rank power. This made Yi Chun recall the days when he was still just an embryo. Every single day, his body was infused with the highest grade life essence. Because of that, he had already touched the D rank threshold in his very first month of existence. This was the colossal gap between a commoner and a top-tier financial clan. In his second month, his ability began to evolve, and ultimately transformed into the rarest of them all, Thunder Elemental Attack. By the 3rd month in the womb, Yi Chun accidentally uncovers secret. During an affair, Madame Liu let slip that her marriage into the Liu family was nothing but a political union because of her treasure medicine physique. And during her pregnancy, she still engaged in intense exercise on a regular basis, which forced Yi Chun, only 6 months developed, to be born prematurely. The timeline fast forwards to 1 month later. The Liu family held a grand banquet to celebrate Yi Chun's first month in the world. Nobles and elites filled the hall, but Yi Chun's gaze turned icy the moment he saw one particular person. In his memory, on the day before his rebirth, he had been at home when Brother Chun called, offering a mission with an enormous payout. Desperate to save enough money to buy a house, Yi Chun reluctantly gave up precious time with his sisters, promising them he'd come straight back after the job. In a rush, he left home, while his 3 sisters stayed behind, eagerly waiting for their brother's return. That day, Yi Chun watched helplessly as his teammates fell one after another. When Brother Chun arrived with a group of men, Yi Chun thought rescue had come. But instead, Brother Chun was simply following young Master Liu's orders, using Yi Chun as bait to lure the monsters. Now, with his enemy right in front of him, there was no way Yi Chun would let this chance slip. He reached out his tiny hand, signaling for Brother Chun to hold him. Brother Chun hesitated, suspicious, ready to refuse. But young Master Liu sneered. "My little master is letting you hold him. That's the greatest honor you'll ever get." Cornered, Brother Chun reluctantly took Yi Chun from the nanny. In that instant, lightning quietly surged from beneath Yi Chun's body, shocking Brother Chun so hard he yelped, muscles twitching violently. His hands flew open, and he dropped Yi Chun straight on the floor. The lively noise of the banquet hall instantly froze. Brother Chun's face turned ashen, his heart pounding wildly, when suddenly, a sharp infant cry pierced the silence. Terrified, Brother Chun dropped to his knees, banging his head in apology. But the precious grandson kept crying without pause. Grandfather Liu's fury exploded. He raised his arm and roared, Brother Chen's fate was sealed, beaten to death, and fed to the dogs. Yi Chen thought to himself, I must grow stronger fast. Only then can I find my sisters. Which meant supplementing his nutrition was now urgent. Catching his little master's intent, Grandfather Lu's eyes flicked toward Maid. Moments later, Madame Lu descended the stairs, grumbling about how this little brat ate so much, and that she was almost completely drained. Before she could even finish her sentence, Yi Chen locked on and pounced with perfect precision. A grown man's soul, reborn into the home of his worst enemy. In his past life, leveling up once took a full year of monster hunting. Now, just 3 months of milk could do the same, to grow strong quickly, so he could one day kill his enemies with his own hands, and with his grandfather's full backing. Yi Chen sought out his mother whenever he had the chance, locking onto his target like a heat-seeking arrow. In mere weeks, the young master could already stand and walk on his own. This only convinced Grandfather Lu further. Yi Chen was heaven's chosen son for the Lu family, deciding it was time to choose a death-sworn guard for him. The old man's gaze drifted toward a nearby prison. The screams inside made Yi Chen's body tremble, for within, children were being put through brutal survival trials. And one of them was one of the 3 sisters he had left behind before his death. Inside the prison, only his sister and one last contender remained. When that boy lunged at her with murderous intent, Yi Chen didn't hesitate. Lightning burst from his body, a blinding flash, and the opponent collapsed, stunned. Days of starvation drove his sister to pounce on the food the moment the fight was over. As she devoured it ravenously, Yi Chen realized he'd just exposed his power. What now? But then, Grandfather Lu's voice rang out, praising his bravery and decisiveness. Yi Chen couldn't help but think, being a kid is great. They invent the excuses for you. With the outcome decided, and under Grandfather Lu's orders, his sister was officially appointed as Yi Chen's death-sworn guard. Not long after, his sister stepped out in fresh clothes. The butler reminded her of a few rules, and as the door clicked shut, she suddenly drew a dagger gleaming with cold light. With his vocal cords undeveloped, Yi Chen could only babble, his mind racing in panic. Your Lu family killed my brother. Today, I'll kill you to avenge him. Before the words had even faded, the blade came stabbing down. Lightning flared. Yi Chen barely dodged in time. But to his shock, she kept up with him even when he used his lightning ability. Wind ability? When had she awakened it? And why did he have no idea? But now is not the time to hesitate. In this infant body, if he stalled any longer, he would be killed. Yi Chen spun around, unleashing his full power. Lightning burst forth. The strike landed, finally forcing his sister to halt her attack. Looking into her stubborn eyes, Yi Chen let out a heavy sigh. He snatched the dagger, slicing open his tiny palm as blood dripped. Trembling, he scrawled 4 words across the floor. I am your brother. But the moment he finished, he slapped his head in frustration. His sister couldn't even read. Meanwhile, Chen walked in with heavy gifts, hoping to beg for forgiveness. As he reached the door, strange noises echoed from inside. He pushed it open, only to find the maid chasing the young master with a dagger. In that instant, Yi Chen's eyes turned cold. He snatched the blade from his sister's hand. With a burst of lightning, he struck her down unconscious. Then, he cut a bloody wound across his own arm. With a flawless throw, he placed the dagger right in Chen's hand. The very next second, Yi Chen sat down beside his fainted sister and wailed like a helpless baby. Hearing the cries, Grandfather Lu rushed in with his men. The sight before them was shocking. Yi Chen sobbing over the maid, while Brother Chen held a bloody dagger. Grandfather Lu's rage exploded, pointing at Chen. Who let this filth in? You dare raise a blade against my grandson? Courting death. Terrified, Chen dropped the dagger in panic. No, it wasn't me. Yi Chen's nominal father stormed forward, slamming a fist in Chen's face. Damn it. I gave you a chance, and you try to harm my son? Bruised and bloodied, Chen stammered desperately. pointing at the maid. "I was only delivering gifts. I walked in and saw that girl trying to kill the young master. The young master grabbed the knife, cut himself, and threw it at me. I know you don't believe me, but it's the truth." Another punch landed, and his father roared, "Where's the gift you spoke of?" Brother Chin panicked, fumbling around his body in desperation. Grandfather Lu suddenly let out a booming laugh and ordered the butler. "This girl protected the young master. Take her down and let her rest." He then clapped his son on the shoulder, his gaze turning cold and sharp. "Son, I taught you how to raise dogs long ago, but you never learned the essence of it. You nearly cost me the Lu family's future. Handle this yourself." With a cold snort, Grandfather Lu turned and left. Brother Chin clearly heard every word. Terror consumed him, his body trembling, cold sweat dripping down his face. Yi Chin's nominal father was just as furious, veins bulging as he roared, "I gave you a chance, and you dared betray me?" Courting death. With one savage kick, he sent Brother Chun flying several meters. Agonized screams echoed through the room, followed by furious curses. "Drag him out, feed him to the dogs, and clean this damn floor." Watching the chaos settle, Yi Chen finally let out a long breath of relief. The butler stepped forward with a pleasant smile. "Young master, I'll be taking her for treatment now." Yi Chen froze. He suddenly remembered the words he had written on the floor. In a panic, he threw himself over his sister, shaking his head desperately to stop the butler. But he was far too small. The butler easily scooped him up and set him back in the crib. As the butler reached for his sister, Yi Chen's heart raced. Should he knock him out with lightning? But then, something completely unexpected happened. As the butler lifted the girl, a pool of blood was revealed beneath her. That blood perfectly covered the words Yi Chen had scrawled. The crisis passed. He let out a sigh of relief. Yet something felt wrong. Why was there a pool of blood? His sister was injured, but he clearly remembered. He had never struck her. In the end, Yi Chen realized none of that mattered. He had more urgent things to do. His growth was far too slow, and danger loomed. With a sudden leap, he jumped down from the crib. At that moment, Madame Lu was enjoying a massage in the therapy room. A sudden noise nearly made her scream. Then, Yi Chen slowly crawled his way up. Without hesitation, he sank his teeth into his target. He acted so desperately because he needed his mother's special physique to accelerate his growth. Enough to speak, so he could finally tell his sister everything. A week later, after relentless effort, his body had advanced to that of a 3-year-old, and at last he could speak. As he practiced forming words, his sister stood silently behind him, eyes dark and piercing. Seeing her, Yi Chen stood up excitedly. I'm your brother. The cake I bought for you, was it tasty?" His sister froze. The baby not only called her by name, but also knew about the cake their brother had prepared for the 3 sisters just before his death. Overcome with emotion, she burst into tears. In that moment, she accepted it. The child before her was indeed her brother. Afraid of drawing the Lu family's attention, Yi Chen quickly covered Yi's mouth. But his sister suddenly threw her arms around him, nearly suffocating the 3-month-old baby on the spot. After a frantic struggle, he finally steadied himself. His face tense as he turned back to Yi. "How did you end up here? What about Shuang and San? And how did you know they were the ones who killed me?" His rapid-fire questions dragged Yi back into painful memories. That night, the 3 sisters had waited until deep into the night, but Yi Chen never came home. Normally, by that hour, their brother would have already returned. The 2 younger sisters grew terrified, convinced something terrible had happened. So Yi made up her mind to go to the place where Yi Chen had taken on his mission. When Yi arrived at the scene, she learned the truth. Every hunter who had entered the dungeon with her brother was dead. She had wanted to return first, to keep her sisters safe, then come back for revenge. But tragedy struck. Their home was suddenly engulfed by a monster tide. The rented house was reduced to rubble, and Shuang and San vanished without a trace. To this day, she didn't know if her sisters were alive or dead. Gritting his teeth, Yi-chan declared coldly. That bastard Chun is already dead. From now on, we siblings must grow stronger. Strong enough to drag the Liu family and all those corrupt elites straight into hell. Yi's eyes burned with fire, cheering for her brother with all her heart. But in the very next moment, she suddenly remembered the butler's instructions. She scooped Yi-chan up into her arms, hurrying to take him for a bath. What are you doing? I'm your brother. No way, absolutely not. But Yi-chan's resistance was completely useless. He claimed it was part of the mission to avoid suspicion, and in just a few swift moves, she stripped him bare. Though they weren't blood-related, the scene still made Yi-chan unbearably embarrassed. Don't look, turn your head. I'm your brother. You remember that. But right now, I'm the older one, and didn't brother bathe us before. This time, it's my turn to help you. The words had barely left her lips when Yi suddenly turned, starting to unbutton her clothes. Yi-chan panicked, slapping his hands over his eyes. At this point, he had no other choice but to endure. Yet some places were absolute forbidden zones, but Yi refused to stop, insisting on finishing. By the end of the bath, Yi-chan wanted to die from embarrassment, wishing the ground would just swallow him whole. Utter humiliation. He was the older brother, yet here he was exposed like a child. Furious at the thought, Yi-chan let out a cold snort at Yi. But to his surprise, it only made her cry. Brother, you scolded me. You've never scolded me before. Yi-chan sighed deeply, standing up to comfort her while quickly changing the subject. All right, I'm not angry, but I have something important to ask you. You awakened the wind ability, didn't you? But the earliest record of a god awakening is at 12 years old. How did you manage it? Even Yi herself had no clear answer. She only remembered one day a strange system interface appeared before her with a dialogue box. She followed its instructions and suddenly awakened. Hearing this, Yi-chan quickly pulled up his own status panel. He still couldn't figure it out. Why had this thing appear to both of them? There had to be something far deeper at work. But since fate had granted them such an opportunity, they couldn't waste it. They had to use it to grow stronger as fast as possible. Watching Yi's maturity, Yi-chan couldn't help but sigh. In his past life, out of the three sisters, she was always the most obedient and responsible. He was just about to praise her when a knock came at the door. It was the butler, worried about the young master's rest. Madame Liu had pumped fresh milk, delivered specially for Yi-chan. When he carried the bottle back, Yi-chan's eyes suddenly lit up. Hard work was important, but even more crucial was using every resource the Liu family had to accelerate his growth. Just as he was about to ask how, the next second, the bottle was shoved right in her mouth. Drink, and drink with everything you've got. No sooner had the words fallen than Yi felt her whole body heat up. The surge of power came so fast it nearly stunned her. Only when her brother explained did she understand. Madame Liu's innate nurturing sacred physique meant that a single feeding's worth of milk carried the energy of a high-level monster crystal. That crystal alone was something an ordinary person could never afford in a lifetime. Yet Madame Liu could produce it endlessly, like a living fountain of essence. And none of this was ever recorded in the God Awakening Academy's texts. Yi-chan sneered inwardly. Clearly, the great clans and rulers had hidden countless secrets from the masses. They tossed scraps to the public, forcing ordinary people to fight and die for their sake. His tiny fists clenched tight. One day, I'll expose every last secret and tell the world the truth. Hearing this, Yi was shaken. She quickly handed the bottle back. Brother, you drink first. But Yi-chan refused flatly. It's all for you. Drink as much as you can. Push yourself to the God Awakening limit to AS for me. Don't worry about it. With that, he opened his mouth and staggered toward the door. The scene cut back to Liu family's therapy chamber. Madame Liu scowled. Yi-chan had been drinking for an entire hour and still wasn't full. Didn't I pump out enough already? Damn, brat. How can you still be this hungry? At those words, the maids panicked, rushing to order precious medicinal meals for Madame Liu. But Yi-chan's mind was elsewhere, already plotting revenge. Soon, and I will tear this Liu family apart. I'll turn your world upside down." The scene shifted. Yi-chan searched the room intently. He remembered Brother Chun had come bearing gifts that day. Sure enough, under the table, he found a gift box. For a man begging for his life, it had to be his entire fortune. And for something to even enter the Liu family, it couldn't be ordinary. "What is this?" It looked like a beast crystal, but pitch black. Suddenly, a system prompt chimed. "Rare skill crystal detected. Absorption grants the thunder skill, lightning spear." A skill crystal? Yi-chen's mind reeled. Skills were supposed to be trained. How could they be absorbed? The system explained. Certain evolved beasts develop unique divine abilities. When slain, they may rarely form skill crystals. Absorbing one strengthens your energy circuits, granting skills that normally require years of training. Instantly, Yi-chen's eyes lit up. "There's something this incredible." Then he froze. "Wait, how do you even know what I'm thinking?" I'm a system dwelling in your consciousness that of course I can sense what you're thinking. Don't try to fool me." Yi-chan snapped. "Before the apocalypse, I was just a high schooler addicted to mobile games and web novels. In those system novels, some random program pops up, dumps missions on the host, and then spits out ridiculous rewards from nowhere, letting the main character flex, slap faces, take revenge, and rise to the top. But you, all you do is show my cultivation level and God awakening ability. That's it. What kind of garbage system are you? If I hadn't reminded you, you wouldn't even know your ability came from reincarnation. You'd already be dead. And instead of thanking me, you dare question me?" Yi-chan admitted the system had a point, but pressed on. "Then what's your connection to Yi's system?" The system stammered. "In none at all. Another system? Impossible. Stop wasting time dragging me into the plot. Focus on training and revenge. You're right that I need to seize every chance to get stronger." With that, Yi-chan shut down the system panel, gripped the black crystal tightly, and sat in meditation to begin cultivation. Yi-chan could clearly feel the flow of God awakening energy within his body. With each breath, a spear of lightning gradually formed in his hands. It worked. Normally, a God Awakener would need 10 years of training, reinforcing their energy circuits just to gain such a skill. Yet he had it already. The thunderous power surged into the spear, capable of both close combat and long-range throws. But how strong was it? Yi-chan hurled the spear forward. Boom! A thunderous explosion shook the entire manor. The deafening noise instantly alarmed the Liu household. His so-called father, his pleasure interrupted, shouted in annoyance. "What the hell? Making such a racket in the middle of the night. Can't a man enjoy himself?" But the sight before them left grandfather Liu completely stunned. Yi-chen's lightning spear had blasted a massive hole straight through the wall. Yi-chen's so-called father was stunned. What? Who did this? The butler quickly stepped forward. This old servant was supervising the Deathsworn's training when suddenly a surge of thunder erupted from the young master's room. There was no one else inside but him. Grandfather Liu lifted Yi-chan in his arms, laughing heartily. "Excellent. Not only born with God Awakening, but already mastering a God skill this quickly. Good daughter-in-law, it's all thanks to your clan's blessed physique and your tireless milk like a sacred cow." But Yi-chen's father scowled. "Brat, causing trouble in the middle of the night." Grandfather Liu's face darkened. "Your son is a prodigy, and you're not proud? What kind of father are you?" "Splendid, splendid. My genius grandson can now enter our clan's annual Otherworld hunting festival ahead of time. Are the preparations complete? Has the target team departed? And have our men blended in to guide them?" "Good. Let's begin. The heirs of the Liu family must learn from childhood what it means to make those lowly commoners fulfill their true purpose." Lying in Madame Liu's arms, Yi-chen's heart trembled as he overheard. Damn it. What are they planning? Grandfather Liu strode to a glowing magic circle. With a surge of runes, violet light burst forth. Before their eyes, a portal to another world slowly opened. Yi-chan was shaken to the core. Weren't otherworld gates supposed to appear randomly? Yet the Liu family had opened one at will. Damn it. Just how much have these so-called rulers of the apocalypse hidden from us, the struggling common folk? In the blink of an eye, the group appeared atop a mountain peak. Madame Liu collapsed weakly to the ground, drained from feeding Yi Chun, cursing, "You little brat, all you do is eat, eat, eat." The butler quickly flattered her. The young master shows no fear even in another world. Truly a prodigy destined for greatness. Suddenly, Yi Chen's nominal father pointed into the distance and shouted, "Over there, they've arrived." A thunderous explosion echoed, scattering birds into the sky and beasts into the forest. A squad was locked in battle with several massive serpents. "Their scales are too hard. We can't cut through it all." "Impossible. How can a C-rank portal spawn C-rank horn pythons?" "And that one, it's a B-rank king horn python." At that moment, a red-haired girl caught both Yi Chen's and Yi's eyes. It was Shuang Shuang. She was alive. At that moment, Shuang Shuang was under attack by a massive horn python. She reacted instantly, grabbing the serpent's jaws with both hands. With a surge of strength, she tore the beast clean in half. The captain, holding back the king horn python's assault, shouted, "Fall back! Retreat while fighting." But before he could finish, a shadow flickered behind him. A crushing fist slammed straight into the captain's back. Blood sprayed from his mouth as his defenses shattered. The kinghorn python lunged forward, its fangs bared, aiming for the defenseless captain. In that dire instant, another teammate roared, charging in from the side. "Bastard! How dare you ambush the captain?" The flat-top man only sneered coldly. His claws lashed out, piercing straight through the teammate's chest. The bald man trembled, pointing a shaking finger at him. "I know him. He's the butcher, Kuei Xiong." "Impossible! Wasn't he already sentenced to death?" Bloodlust consumed Kuei Xiong as he tossed the freshly slain teammate straight into the kinghorn python's jaws. Gritting his teeth, Yi Chun seethed. "The butcher Kuei Xiong. He's the one who crippled me. The reason I fell victim to that bastard of the Liu family. This madman found joy in slaughtering both awakened and ordinary people. A true demon. Ranked B-class, mid-tier. He was supposed to be executed, yet the Liu family sheltered him, swapped him out, and turned him into their attack dog. What should I do? With so many eyes watching, how can I possibly save Shuang Shuang?" Suddenly, a spark of inspiration flashed in Yi Chen's mind that "I've got it." Without warning, he buried his face and began sucking milk again. Liu's young mistress was stunned. "You brat, you're supposed to be watching and you start drinking again? You're insufferable." But after gulping too much, Yi Chen's body reacted. She panicked, shouting, "Hey, what are you doing?" The next second, he vomited all over her, drenching her clothes, leaving her horrified. "Arg! Disgusting!" she shrieked, flinging Yi Chen away in disgust. Liu's patriarch's face instantly darkened to pitch black. Thankfully, he leapt forward, catching Yi Chen midair. She landed safely, asking nervously, "Brother, are you okay?" Yi Chen pressed a finger to his lips. "Stay quiet. When chaos breaks out, wait for my signal. We'll save Shuang Shuang." On the other side, young Master Liu slapped Madame Liu hard across the face. "How are you taking care of the child? So clumsy." Madame Liu gritted her teeth and roared. "You dare hit me? Even my parents never laid a hand on me. I didn't marry into this house to be beaten, you bastard." With that, an ice blade materialized in her hand, striking straight at him. Yet Liu's young master didn't flinch. With a stomp, sharp stone spikes shot up from the ground, blocking her attack. Watching the couple fight, Yi Chun found it amusing, secretly thinking, the fiercer, the better. But in the next instant, a white light burst forth between them, forcing both to stop. It was the Liu patriarch who intervened. "My dear daughter-in-law." Spitting up is common for newborns. As a mother, you must put the child first. How could you be so reckless? You two shoulder the burdens of both families. You must rein in your tempers. Do you understand? Hearing this, Madame Liu dispersed the ice blade in her hand. Seeing the couple held back, Yi turned to her brother nervously. Brother, what do we do now? But Yi Chun, brimming with confidence, whispered back, Don't worry. Suddenly, rustling came from the woods behind them. The butler quickly warned, Master, something's moving. Everyone, including the Lu patriarch, turned to look. A pack of goblins emerged from the trees, sniffing the air as if hunting for something. Following the scent, they soon stumbled right into the Lu family's group. The moment they saw humans, the goblins' eyes turned blood red. They howled into the sky, clearly summoning reinforcements. Scouts, the butler shouted. Young Master Lu sneered, unleashing his skill. Sharp stone spikes erupted from the ground, impaling several goblins in an instant. What? How did these things show up? Wasn't the area cleared already? Someone cried out. The patriarch scolded harshly. Humph! This is what happens when you neglect your studies and spend your time fooling around in bars. My daughter-in-law's milk is purer than high-grade essence to beasts. It's an irresistible lure. It will draw powerful monsters. As it turned out, Yi Chun had calculated all of this. Even spitting up milk was part of his scheme. And just as expected, the goblins' calls brought in more troops, swarming toward them in droves. A goblin drooled as it swung its blade and charged at the Lu family. The patriarch's eyes turned cold. Dispose of it. Instantly, young Master Lu, his wife, and the butler unleashed their skills, striking back at the goblins. While everyone's attention was locked on the fight, Yi Chun quietly pulled Yi aside, ready to rescue Shuang. But as the two slowly backed away, they failed to notice they were already at the cliff's edge. In the very next moment, both of them plunged into the abyss. As they plummeted, Yi's eyes suddenly lit up with a brilliant blue glow. Then, with arms spread wide, she rose into the air, actually flying. Yi Chun was stunned. Since when did you learn wind-type flight skills? Yi grinned. The system rewarded me with it after I finished a task. Yi Chun's lips twitched. What kind of task? Giving you a bath, she replied proudly. Yi Chun was left speechless. Inside, he cursed. Seriously? Just giving me a bath? And you get a rare skill like this? What kind of ridiculous system is that? Shuang and her teammates were desperately fending off the swarm of serpents, yet against a beast that was a whole realm stronger. Even unleashing a treasured shield was nothing but a futile struggle. There was no time to heed the cries for help behind them. The captain fixed his gaze ahead, gripping his weapon tightly. Kuei Xiong, we have no feud. What exactly are you after? Kuei Xiong's reply left the captain baffled. I simply enjoy the screams of living prey in my hands. Thanks to my master, I can savor this thrill again. The captain pressed him about this so-called master, pulling out the guild's subjugation order to warn him that his actions were illegal. But Kuei Xiong only laughed mockingly. Law, that's for you lowly peasants to obey. Do you understand? The moment his words fell, Kuei Xiong's figure vanished. In the next instant, he pierced straight through a teammate's chest. The gap in power was so vast that the captain couldn't even react, until he saw the corpse flung toward the beast. Only then did he realize Kuei Xiong's goal was to use human flesh as feed to raise the beast's level. The mission's failed. Scatter. If one survives, that's enough. Shuang run. With that, the captain charged forward, ready to sacrifice himself to buy them time. But with just one clash, Kuei Xiong seized his head in his grip. Shuang, with her frail body, leapt high into the air and hurled a stone with all her might. The rock struck Kuei Xiong's arm, igniting the bloodthirsty fury within him. He abandoned the captain and lunged straight at Shuang. A sharp crack echoed across the battlefield. The captain had thrown his own body forward, shielding Shuang from the fatal blow. Yet to Kuei Xiong, this was nothing more than a casual move. He watched coldly as the captain was tossed into the beast's gaping maw. Shuang's eyes were bloodshot, filled with despair. The crunching sounds of the beast's jaws sent shivers through her. The monster still needed just a bit more flesh to complete its evolution. Though Kuei Xiong longed to drag Shuang back and preserve her as a specimen, for the sake of his master's plan, He reluctantly gave up that idea. His claws once again stretched toward her. Brother, sister, where are you? Her desperate cry was cut short as a streak of yellow lightning flashed across the battlefield. Kuei Xiong spun around, raising his arm to block the sudden strike. And from behind that bolt, a deep voice slowly echoed. As the smoke cleared, the figure that emerged left Shuang Shuang utterly stunned. It's sister and brother. Am I hallucinating? Brother, are you really alive? Shuang Shuang, explanations can wait. Deal with the crisis first. Yi Chun fixed his eyes on the beast, thoughts racing. Another one of these cases? There's nothing in the Academy's records about this. Monsters evolving after devouring a certain number of awakened. On the other side, Kuei Xiong felt lightning surging through his body, paralyzing his limbs. He unleashed his inner force in full, breaking free from the restraint in an instant. His eyes widened as he stared at the figure who had suddenly appeared and launched an attack. The young master and his handmaid? How could they be here? What's more, they seemed to know that red-haired girl. Faced with the sudden twist, Kuei Xiong's mind was a storm of confusion. Meanwhile, Yi Chun felt troubled. He couldn't help but think. In those novels he read, villains were always brainless idiots. But Kuei Xiong clearly wasn't one of them. After some thought, Kuei Xiong decided to capture Shuang Shuang and take her back as a specimen. As long as the young master wasn't harmed, he likely wouldn't be punished. He unleashed the full power of his mid-B rank metal awakening. Though Yi Chen's lightning element restrained metal, his cultivation was only at peak C rank. He still couldn't bridge the gap. Then he remembered, his two sisters both had D rank strength. A sudden plan sparked in his mind. Shuang Shuang, listen carefully. Follow my lead. Even as he spoke, Kuei Xiong was claiming he only wanted to protect the young master, while secretly charging up and hurling a devastating punch at them. The two sisters split to the sides at once, while Yi Chun activated his divine awakening refinement, choosing to clash head-on with Kuei Xiong. So young, yet the little master had already grasped the forbidden art of divine awakening refinement. In Yi Chen's stance, Kuei Xiong suddenly saw the shadow of another. It was that boy who, not long ago, fought him evenly with nothing but D-rank strength, until young Master Lu intervened to finish him off. Now, facing yet another opponent who dared to fight across realms, Kuei Xiong's fury boiled over. Yi Chen also knew well. Though he wielded the lightning awakening, his child's body could not sustain it for long, which meant he had only one chance. With a thunderous roar, Yi Chun gave the command. At that instant, Shuang Shuang hoisted a massive boulder. Following his order, she channeled all her strength and hurled it forward. Kuei Xiong flickered back, narrowly dodging the strike. But the moment he landed, there was no time to react. A surge of green light erupted beneath his feet. In an instant, a tornado rose up, trapping him completely within. He poured out every ounce of her strength, unleashing her wind awakening to its absolute limit. Kuei Xiong looked down at his wounded body, just about to gather strength for a counterattack. But then, lightning flickered in Yi Chen's hands. In the next instant, it shaped into a blazing spear of thunder. With a mighty throw, the spear shot straight toward Kuei Xiong at the eye of the storm. In that desperate moment, he jerked his head aside, shielding his vital point. A deafening explosion erupted, shaking the entire mountain range. As the smoke slowly cleared, Yi Chun stood drained, his strength nearly spent. Yet the voice that rose from within the storm cast the siblings into fresh despair. Young master, you're quite the mischievous one. Almost had me there. But with your current state, you won't pull that off a second time. Now, it's my turn to perform. Enough. I can't take it anymore. Kuei Xiong roared, furious that a 200-pound warrior had been toyed with by 3 children. His aura erupted in full force as he charged straight at Shuang Shuang. He tried to shield her sister with her wind awakening, but she had clearly overestimated her strength. With just a single punch, she was blasted away, blood spraying from her mouth. Don't rush one by one. None of you are escaping. The moment his words ended, Kuei Xiong leapt high, lashing out with 2 iron whips aimed straight at Shuang Shuang. In that instant of crisis, a golden bolt of lightning struck down. Yi Chun threw caution aside, using his small frame as a shield to intercept the fatal blow, taking it head-on. He spewed blood as his body was hurled through the air. Shuang Shuang darted back and caught him with all her strength. Kuei Xiong let out a sinister laugh. Who throws their life away like that? You. But Yi Chun wiped the blood from his lips and sneered. The thing about people is they never realize when their death aura has already set in. At those words, Kuei Xiong instantly realized Yi Chun had taken a hit on purpose. But the moment he heard the voice behind him, it was already too late for regret. Kuei Xiong, you blind mutt. You dare raise your hand against my young master? Tired of living, are you? Hearing old Master Lu's words, Kuei Xiong seethed with anger, but dared not speak. With the old man's strength, killing him would be as effortless as crushing an ant. What shook him even more was realizing that all of this had been orchestrated by the 1-year-old young master, a borrowed blade scheme from the start. Just moments earlier, the Lu family had finished repelling a goblin siege. It was the butler who first discovered the young heir missing. The disappearance of his grandson sent old Master Lu into a furious rage. Then, catching sight of a streak of lightning flashing through the forest, he suppressed his wrath, stepped into the air, and rushed ahead. Everyone knew old Master Lu was infamous for his overprotectiveness. All the more so when it came to this genius grandson he regarded as a priceless treasure. Kuei Xiong knew that if he wanted to survive now, his only chance was to gamble everything. If he could seize the boy, perhaps he'd still have some leverage. With that thought, he no longer hesitated, throwing all his strength into a charge straight at Yi Chun and his sisters. Shuang Shuang reacted instantly, snatching up an iron stake from the ground, and hurled it at Kuei Xiong with all her might. In the instant he dodged the strike, young Master Lu appeared right on cue, shouting, "Beast, meet your death." At the same time, he commanded the Snake King, launching a merciless, indiscriminate assault on Kuei Xiong. By now, Kuei Xiong had been fighting for far too long, his strength completely drained. Within just a few blows, he was caught and crushed. The Snake King's fangs ended his life on the spot. Devouring Kuei Xiong, the Snake King finally underwent its evolution, leaping into a higher realm of power. Meanwhile, old Master Lu, seeing Yi and Shuang Shuang's merits in protecting Yi Chun, ordered the butler to tend to the 2 girls while directing the others to harvest the evolved Snake King, eager to see what treasures it might yield for Yi Chun's use. Only then did Yi Chun finally understand his grandfather's words. Those common awakened had been lured in as fodder, fed to beasts until, once enough were devoured, the monsters would undergo a new stage of evolution. Such secrets were things he never could have known before reincarnating as old Master Lu's grandson. Just how many more truths were hidden in the hands of these great families remained unknown. With the battle over, old Master Lu began distributing the spoils. The 3 siblings stared in shock at the scene before them. The items that burst forth from the evolved Serpent King were things they had never even heard of in their previous lives. Yet old Master Lu acted as though it were nothing unusual, simply ordering the butler to take the injured Yi and Shuang Shuang back to be rewarded. As for the rest, every piece of loot was stored into the materials vault. The lower grade items would be padded with scraps and sold off to ordinary awakened hunters as expendable supplies. The higher grade spoils were stored in the guild's vault, their prices deliberately inflated to bleed the top-tier, awakening teams dry in bidding wars. This venom sac from the Silverhorn Serpent King sent it back to the imperial capital to build connections for the eldest young master. As for the Silverhorn itself, put it up for auction. Old Master Lu paused, his tone suddenly turning solemn. The greatest harvest of this hunt lies in these rare heavenly serpent essences. Only by devouring large numbers of awakened can a Serpent King condense such treasures of unmatched hardness. These will be reserved for my precious grandson to forge a new artifact. The butler immediately bowed and prepared to carry out the order. Young Master Lu stepped forward at once, requesting his father grant him the remaining serpent essence. Old Master Lu's face darkened, a cold snort escaping his lips. You already have such an exceptional wife. Even if your son receives less, it will still benefit you more than this essence ever could. At that, young Master Lu's chest tightened. He remembered how his father had always been generous whenever he asked for something. But now things were different, and the reason for that change was none other than this little brat before him. Just as young Master Lu gnashed his teeth in frustration, Old Master Lu casually tossed the essence straight to the butler. I know your eldest son is breaking through to mid-beer rank. This will serve him better. Take it. Days later, the scene shifted to the Lu family castle. Yi-chan was in his room, studying the scales of the heavenly serpent. Yi pushed the door open with good news. Shuang had been assigned by the butler to become Yi-chan's personal maid. But Yi-chan barely registered her words. His focus was locked on the Silver Serpent King's heart guard necklace resting against his chest. Eyes closed, he recited the incantation, gathering his inner force. At the instant, yellow lightning sparked at his fingertips. He unleashed it with full power, striking the heavenly serpent necklace head-on. The crack of thunder resounded through the room. Yet, to everyone's astonishment, the heavenly serpent necklace remained utterly unscathed, not even trembling in the slightest. This hunt only confirmed Yi-chen's suspicion. As long as otherworldly beasts devoured enough awakened, they would undergo a form of super-evolution. Yet in his previous life, not a single record of this existed in the Awakener Academy. Looking back now, it was clear families like the Lius had monopolized this knowledge, trading the lives of common awakened for rare, top-tier materials. That was how they secured stronger powers and superior gear, forever keeping ordinary people beneath their boots. The irony was that Awakener School for the Masses still preached the noble lie that aristocrats led Awakened to defend the people together. But the truth behind the curtain was rotten to the core. Having lived that struggle in his past life, Yi-chen knew too well the hardships of common awakened. Rage burned within him, his eyes sharpening as he turned to his two sisters. From now on, you must also use the Lu family's resources and opportunities. Train harder, dig out more secrets. When we grow strong enough, that will be the day we expose these filthy truths to the world. Before their rebirth, the three siblings lived in poverty, crammed into a tiny rental room, struggling to survive. After rebirth, they unexpectedly reunited in the powerful Lu family, one of the top financial clans. But when the brother asked about the whereabouts of their youngest sister, Shuang couldn't hold back and burst into tears. Afraid of alarming the Lu family, Yi-chen quickly covered her mouth, realizing she had lost control of his emotions. He calmed himself, and only then did Shuang slowly open her mouth. Back when Yi-chan and Yi had left, hunger gnawed at her. Shuang almost took a bite of the tiny piece of cake on the table. But knowing her brother and sister hadn't returned yet, she forced herself to resist and turned to call for Sanson. Yet no answer came. The cramped rental was already empty, no one left inside. Panicked by her sister's sudden disappearance, Shuang rushed out to search. When she reached the rooftop, she saw a scene she would never forget for the rest of her life. She realized then, the monstrous tide that struck humanity wasn't a natural disaster, but a man-made calamity. That night, just as Shuang reached the rooftop, she saw a lone figure holding a staff. The figure paid no attention to her presence, clutching the staff tightly with both hands, chanting incantations until an ominous glow began to flicker. A magic array suddenly lit up beneath his feet. The unleashed energy chains seemed to pierce the very heavens, tearing open the void and ripping a spatial rift into existence. As the shadowy figure slowly faded away, countless beasts from another world surged out of the rift, while Shuang was chased and hunted by the monsters. A system prompt suddenly echoed, she had automatically unlocked the ability of divine, awakening body cultivation. With that power, she was able to leap across floors and narrowly escape the beast's pursuit. Later on, Shuang came across a team of hunters who took her in. The system kept appearing again and again around the siblings that why Yi-chan felt puzzled, but at the same time, relieved. Judging from this, there was a good chance Sanson would awaken the system as well, meaning she might still be alive. For now, their top priority was to use the Liu family's intelligence network to track down any clue about Sanson. But before Yi-chan could finish speaking, Shuang suddenly jumped up, shouting that she had almost forgotten about her system task. Without warning, she scooped Yi-chan up and dragged him toward the room, claiming she had to complete a bizarre mission, taking care of her brother's bath. Yi-chan flailed in her arms and shouted, "Let me go, what kind of cursed system is this?" Yi covered her mouth, laughing on the side. "Huh, looks like the system's just messing with you." Yi-chan's face turned crimson, his whole body stiff with embarrassment. Being too young to resist, he had no choice but to endure his sister's antics, squeezing his eyes shut and pretending none of this was happening. On their way back, after finishing her bath, Shuang suddenly froze in her tracks. Yi-chan was just about to ask what was wrong, when he saw her eyes fill with terror as she raised a trembling finger toward the front. "It's him. That's the one. He's the one who unleashed the beast tide." As soon as her words fell, an old man and a young man appeared before them. The one Shuang pointed to was none other than the butler's son, Zhou Qing. That night's scene was something she would never forget. Zhou Qing had torn open the gate of the void, bringing the beast tide into the world and slaughtering humanity. Yet now was clearly not the time to expose him. Following Yi-chan's lead, the three of them held back their fury and walked forward, feigning calm. Shuang and Yi even stepped up to greet the butler politely. The butler and Zhou Qing quickly bowed their heads in respect to Yi-chan. From the look on his face, Zhou Qing clearly didn't recognize that the girl in the corner that night had been Shuang. The father and son reached the Liu family's main gate, exchanged a few words, and were then ushered inside. It was the council hall, a place surely meant for secrets to be discussed. But if they followed openly, suspicion would be inevitable. So Yi-chan came up with the simplest, most straightforward solution. He strode straight up to the council hall doors, and without a word, shoved them open. As expected, three figures were already deep in discussion inside. Yi and Shuang quickly bowed and apologized, explaining that the young master had insisted on finding his grandfather, and they failed to stop him from barging in. As expected, once the two sisters were sent away, the doting grandfather of the Liu family pulled Yi-chan into his arms. He then turned his gaze toward the butler and his son. The imperial capital is turbulent, and the time has come for the Liu family to climb higher. We need more refined essence and resources to grease the wheels. How are preparations for the next beast tide? Zhou Qing immediately bowed low. "Master, we've already located a new herd of beasts in the other world. We can unleash them at any time." However, after the last beast tide, the number of divine awakened in the city was reduced by 30%. It's only been 3 months. The new graduates from the Divine Academy aren't ready yet, so reinforcements are lacking. Hearing this with his own ears, Yi-chan finally realized just how pitiful this world truly was. The so-called lessons he once took so seriously in his past life. Teachers preaching that the beast tide was a natural disaster, that becoming a divine awakened meant protecting the people and dying honorably, were nothing but lies. Butler Zhou continued his report. "I've already made arrangements. Recently, I had the Quest Guild issue numerous high-reward missions, drawing in many outside divine awakened teams." Old Master Liu beamed with delight after hearing the report. "Ha ha! Excellent. Old Zhou, your family has served the Liu clan with loyalty for 3 generations that I am truly gratified." As Old Zhou subtly gestured with his finger, his eldest son, Zhou Qing, immediately understood, dropping to his knees. "Master, your words are too heavy. Serving the Liu family is my greatest honor." Butler Zhou smiled broadly. "Thanks to your generosity, Master, With the refined essence of the Serpent King you bestowed, my son has advanced to the peak of divine, awakened rank B. We are forever grateful for your great kindness." Old Master Lu chuckled, even teasing the grandson in his arms. "Yichun, proceed with the beast tide as planned. Also, make sure our Lu family's beast trading guild absorbs these resources, then have the equipment workshop release new gear at sky-high prices. Prepare the restaurants, the bathhouses, the women, the men, and the casinos as well. Everything in place to drain whatever wealth the surviving divine awakened have left." The butler nodded immediately and hurried off to carry out the orders. Yi Chun, on the other hand, was utterly shaken by the conversation he had just overheard so openly. That very night, Yi Chun hurriedly called for his two sisters, Yi and Shuang Shuang. He told them firmly that he was now certain. The beast tide was no natural disaster. It was orchestrated by families like the Lius, who deliberately opened gates to the other world, unleashing beasts to devour humanity and bait the divine awakened into fighting. The high-tier beasts nurtured by the divine awakened sacrifice, along with all the expenses before and after battle, ultimately flowed into the coffers of the empire's top financial clans. Hearing this, he couldn't hold back and cursed in fury. But Yi Chun understood all too well. In the eyes of these magnates, ordinary lives were as cheap and expendable as livestock. Shuang Shuang suggested, "Why don't we just expose this secret to the public?" Yet they knew, even if they revealed the truth now, no one would believe the words of a few children. That left only one path for the siblings, to tear down the Lu family's claws piece by piece. The first step, kill Zhou Qing and stop the coming beast tide. With that, Yi Chun gave a decisive wave of his hand. His two sisters immediately obeyed, stepping forward, ready to carry out the mission. Yi Chun carefully laid out his plan. When he saw his sisters nod in agreement, he finally smiled. "We've got 3 weeks to prepare for Zhou Qing. So the key is how to boost our strength as quickly as possible." With that, Yi Chun raised his baby bottle. Shuang Shuang stared blankly in confusion. Yi, however, already understood the secret behind it from her own experience. To let Shuang Shuang try it firsthand, Yi Chun pushed the bottle to her lips. With just one sip, Shuang Shuang felt an overwhelming surge of energy flood her body. Yi Chun handed the remaining 2 bottles of processed milk to his sisters. Then he bounced away, eager to hunt for the system's original milk source, hoping for even greater power. The young madam of the Lu family collapsed onto the floor when she saw him coming. "You little brat, why is your appetite getting bigger and bigger? Are you never full?" 3 weeks later, a sudden system notification rang out before his eyes. Although Yi Chun's divine awakening level was still stuck at the peak of rank C, he had gained a brand new ability, rapid regeneration. If Yi Chun were on the brink of death, he could instantly respawn within a chosen host's body. No need to spend months inside a womb. He could restore himself directly to his current state. Even more terrifying, this ability could be used offensively. Killing an enemy from the inside out. It was pure overkill. "Brother, everything's ready. Let's move." Earlier, the 3 of them had each gathered different pieces of intelligence. Yi, hidden among the Lu family's servants, discovered that Zhou Qing was a divine awakening specialist of the system path. Back when he graduated from the Divine Academy, he was already rank B, initial stage. Now, he served as captain of the Lu family security corps and enjoyed Old Master Lu's full trust. Shuang Shuang, however, brought back conflicting information. Rumor had it that Zhou Qing had been granted a treasure by Old Master Lu, allowing him to break through to the peak of rank B. That was the highest level a commoner divine awakened could possibly reach. In addition, Zhou Qing possessed a signature divine awakening skill known as Divine Whip. With it, his arms could soften and snap like whips, combined with the physical enhancements of the system path. Once his arms lashed out, even heavy metal armor could be shattered to pieces. He was far stronger than that Kuei Xiong ever was. By comparison, Yi Chun was only at the peak of rank C, and Yi had just broken into the initial stage of rank C. Shuang, after days of milk feeding, had only reached the peak of rank D. Even together, the three of them were no match for Zhou Qing in a head-on fight. At that moment, Shuang suddenly stood up, saying she had completed one of the system's absurd daily tasks, taking care of her brother. As a result, she had been rewarded with a flashy new divine awakening ability. If I say the name, it might scare you. It's called Hot Blood Overdrive. Yi Chen's face instantly darkened with exasperation. Shuang, however, began explaining the details of this ability with complete seriousness. Simply put, Shuang could split into 5 clones for 30 seconds of combat. Combined with her previous divine awakening ability, Titan Arms, this combo was nothing to scoff at. On the surface, Yi Chen looked delighted. But deep inside, he grew increasingly uneasy about the system that had appeared among them, that IT revealed methods even the top clans didn't know, absorbing beast essence to inherit their skills, and it had handed his sister a godlike ability as a reward for completing nothing more than a ridiculous daily task. Abilities like that were the kind of fortune most people couldn't achieve even after a lifetime of cultivation. Yet even so, the 3 siblings still stood no chance of defeating Zhou Qing head-on. At that moment, his sister's eyes turned toward Yi Chen, pressing him about what intelligence he had gathered on Zhou Qing. Zhou Qing will be moving in the city's southern district at 1 in the morning. Shuang's nerves tightened instantly at the words. The Crimson Pomegranate Divine Awakening Group she had once stayed with was located right there in the South District. With the leader already dead, she had to warn the deputy commander to evacuate at once, or they would surely be massacred by Zhou Qing. Yi Chen activated his Electro-Path Divine Awakening and stepped in front of Shuang. Don't rush, there's still time. And I already have a way to take down Zhou Qing. Yi and Shuang's eyes lit up at once. In no time, a careful plan formed in the 3 of their minds. Yi Chen was confident. If the 3 of them prepared individually, tonight would be Zhou Qing's last night. Night fell. The clock had just struck midnight. The 3 siblings finished disguising and stood ready. On a dark, wind-swept night, the 3 recently weaned infants pulled on their stealth cloaks, preparing to ambush a divine awakened expert who could one-shot any one of them. Guided by the Crimson Pomegranate Group's intel, the 3 quickly locked onto their target on the rooftop. From the shadows, they peered out, spotting Zhou Qing preparing to activate a teleportation array. Shuang was about to strike, but Yi Chen stopped her. Not yet. Stay calm. His strength is too great. We have to hit at the right moment. Sure enough, moments later, the staff in Zhou Qing's hand flared with blinding crimson light. Red lightning coursed over his body, wrapping him completely. As the void array was on the verge of activation, Yi Chen seized the opening and gave the order. Shuang leapt forward, her inner force erupting as the ground cracked beneath her. She snatched up a chunk of stone, let out a fierce shout, and hurled it with all her might. Zhou Qing, his focus locked on the array, realized too late, only to be struck squarely by the rock. Wounded, he lost his grip as the staff flew from his hands. In the next instant, the staff was already stolen away. The one who struck was Yi. She had been waiting for this moment all along. Zhou Qing roared in fury, snarling, courting death. In the next instant, his arms softened into whips and lashed out violently. In a blink, Yi was ensnared midair. But clearly, she had anticipated this. The very moment she was bound, she hurled the staff away once more. The staff's importance forced Zhou Qing to split his focus, just as his fingers were about to snatch it back. A brilliant yellow flash suddenly erupted. The sheer force within it made Zhou Qing's heart lurch. The blazing light closed instantly, slamming into him as an explosion thundered across the rooftop. Yi Chen thought it was over, but when the smoke cleared, Zhou Qing's arm was badly mangled, while the rest of his body remained completely intact. Zhou Qing cursed furiously, stomping the ground as his body shot into the air. He was clearly enraged beyond control. Yi Chen backed away, shouting, activate the second plan. Yi responded instantly, gathering her strength in secret. In the next heartbeat, she hurled the staff once more. But this time it wasn't thrown at random. It flew straight into Yi Chen's hands. At this moment, Zhou Qing's physique type, divine, awakening ability, was pushed to its absolute limit. Yet he never imagined that, as someone who had reached the peak of what ordinary humans could achieve, he would end up taught a harsh lesson tonight by 3 children.